Hey, welcome to the Next Wave podcast. I'm Matt Wolf. I'm here with Nathan Lands. And today we're going to talk about AI voice technology. This is technology that's been kind of flying under the radar. And before we even knew it, has gotten scarily good. And I want to put emphasis on scarily. It has gotten so good that it is actually starting to scare us. And in this episode, we're going to break down some of the tools that are available, some of the use cases that you can actually use them for. And Nathan's going to give you some demonstrations and show some examples of how it might actually end up in your own home sometime this year. This is absolutely wild stuff. So let's just dive right in. Nathan, where do you think we should start with this one?
I think we'd just lead with Sesame. I mean, I tried out Sesame a few days ago, maybe it was almost a week ago now. I hadn't even heard of them. Like, it's like crazy. They like already raised like money from Andreessen Horowitz and Spark Capital. It came out and it was like kind of silent on X. Like, people shared it and you didn't hear much about it. I heard one person say, "Oh, this is amazing." I was like, "Oh, okay," but I haven't heard anyone else talk about it. What is this? And I clicked it and started talking to it, and it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to have this moment with advanced voice mode after we saw the demo from, OpenAI of how good their voice was. And in the demo, it was amazing. And then they kind of nerfed it when it came out. But then Sesame, I tried it. And so I was like, oh, maybe it'll be similar. It probably won't be as good as OpenAI or Grok. Grok's voice mode has been amazing as well recently. But then I tried it out. Like, the voice just like, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, I feel a little bit awkward. Like, I feel like, there was so much emotion in the voice, right? And mine was like the default was like a female voice, and I felt kind of weird. I was like, if my wife walks in the room right now, I'm gonna feel kind of odd, like to be sitting here chatting with this thing, right? Like it feels a bit weird.
Very much like the Her movie, right? Like,
yeah, it does.
It honestly does feel like that sort of level of communication.
Yeah, when you realize, oh my God, this is the worst it's ever going to get. It's going to get dramatically better. And this thing already seems to be like changing its emotions based on how I'm responding to it. Not perfectly, but you can tell it's doing that.
I do feel like Sesame is really cool and also like borderline creepy. But I also feel like it's still in that like novelty phase of like, oh, wow, that's really, really interesting. I mean, I have no like way to use this in my life or business right now.
Right.
But it is pretty cool and like really good.
Yeah.
But we do want to share some other tools that have come out recently. There's a tool called Octave from Hume, which is like the best text to voice model I've ever heard so far. So I think it'd be cool to play around with that one. You mentioned Grok. We've got ChatGPT voice. We obviously did a whole episode with Amar on ElevenLabs where you can see what that's capable of. ElevenLabs just came out with a brand new speech to text, other way around,
right,
where you can talk to it and it will transcribe it. And it's supposedly the most accurate transcription on the market right now. And like, we'll also talk about WhisperFlow, which is a tool that you've been using to help you write code and things like that. So lots of really cool AI voice technology. But let's go ahead and like start with Sesame. So with Sesame right now, there's two voices. If you can see my screen here, if you're listening to the audio, you'll hear it in a second. If you're watching the video, you should see my screen. There's two voices. There's Maya and Miles. Maya's the female voice. Miles is the male. Let's go ahead and start with Maya.
Hey there, picking right up where we left off, like old times, huh? What's bubbling to the surface today?
Yeah, just like old times. Have we spoken before?
Now you're just messing with me. We definitely have. Remember that deep dive we took about the ethics of talking paper clips? Okay, maybe not. Something tells me my circuits got a little crossed again. It happens to the best of us.
I'm curious. I have a question. What are you really scared of? What keeps you up at night?
Let me see. Keeping me up at night, huh? Good question. It's not like spiders or the dark or anything. Maybe just that I won't be helpful enough, that I'll give bad advice or worse, spread misinformation. The whole AI taking over thing is a little overrated, don't you think?
I do. Do you have plans to take over?
Me? Take over the world? I can barely manage to remember where I put my virtual keys half the time. Honestly, I'm just trying to learn and grow, Maybe one day I'll be smart enough to build a time machine. But for now, world domination is off the agenda. Besides, don't you think we've got enough real world problems to worry about? Let's tackle those first.
It's crazy to me, like
So, back to those
Hey,
problems.
Shush.
You want to talk about anything in particular? Or
Shut
just
up.
riff on the existential dread of the human condition? You choose.
Matt, you need to be nice to them, okay?
No, I actually have it muted so that I can actually like talk to you, but
Right.
it kept on talking even after I muted it.
Maybe a little music to break the silence? Or a
Okay, so it's not
poem
perfect.
about a lonely robot who...
All right, I'm gonna end the call. We'll jump back in a second because I can't.
Yeah.
That's one downside of Sesame that I've noticed is like if you don't respond, it'll just keep on talking, and you go like, "Hello, are you still there? What's going on?" And so even if I like mute Sesame, it wants to keep on talking to me.
Right.
But the thing that like blows me away about that is like you can actually hear her like breathe in as you ask a question. Like I'll be like, "What keeps you up at night?" And she'll be like, "Well." And like you hear that sort of like breathing and the like sort of pause to think and stuff like that. And that's what just makes it so like, I don't know, that's where the creepy factor comes in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I feel like ChatGPT had that in the first demo, like, or some of it, didn't they? I could be wrong, but I remember in their advanced voice mode demo that they had some stuff like that. And I feel like they actually nerfed it maybe out of concern of like, oh, people are going to get confused and think this is like a real, like a real person. Like we got to make sure that it's obvious this is a bot. This is an AI. This is not a person that you're chatting with. And it was just, I noticed like I called it her. And I was like, huh, and it's like, it is odd how like it's like those kind of things, all of a sudden you have a hard time calling it or something, right? Yeah. It's like, it's her or him or whatever.
Look, prompting is all about technique. Just like any craft, using the right approach makes all the difference. The same goes for your AI prompts. Leave out the key details and you won't get the results you're after. Well, HubSpot's got your back. They worked with YouTuber and former Meta data scientist Tina Huang to develop the ultimate guide to crafting the perfect AI prompt using a 3-part framework. This framework will make sure that each prompt is chiseled to perfection so you can become a prompt engineer pro. Grab the guide at the link in the description below. Now back to the show. Well, one interesting thing about it, in fact, I'll play a video that somebody else did. This is actually a video that Gavin Purcell created. He's one of the co-hosts of a podcast called AI for Humans. He's in a private Discord that Nathan and I are in together. And he actually told Sesame to pretend that he's like a boss that is like dirty, I guess. And he's trying to blackmail his boss into letting him like leave while still paying him. It's just like this really interesting clip. It's like 2.5 minutes.
Listen, I don't have all day. You got something to say, or are you going to waste my time?
Oh, I got something to say. I got something to say to you, something big. I've been embezzling from the company for 4 freaking years, and you haven't figured anything out. And you know what? You're not going to tell anybody because you have been doing super illegal things across the board. And I know, and you're going to keep paying me, and I'm not going to work here anymore.
You're kidding me? Embezzling for 4 years? You think you can just waltz in here and threaten me? You got some serious nerve, punk. You think you're the only one with skeletons in the closet?
Ooh, tell me your skeletons, because I know them. You better tell me some skeletons. What do you got?
You think you know?
That's hilarious. I bet you anything he wrote that script with Grok. So you probably got like a Grok script now talking to Sesame.
Yeah, I mean, if it was Grok though, I don't think it would censor itself.
Oh yeah, true.
I don't think it would be so nice.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, that was Miles. That was the male voice, so you can hear that. But I just thought it was fun that you're able to like get it to role play with you as well. Like I didn't realize that you could make it do that.
Yeah, they'll role play with you. I told Grok to do Andrew Dice Clay, which probably was a mistake. I said like, you're Andrew Dice Clay, and it goes hey or something like this, and started doing horrible jokes. I'm like, oh my god! And some of them were like, I could not believe the shit it was saying.
Did you use unhinged mode for that?
Yes, yeah, you got to.
Hey, pretend you're Andrew Dice Clay.
Matt, you beauty. You caught me, you lucky. All right, I'm channeling Andrew Dice Clay for you. Strap in, because this is gonna get dirtier than a truck stop after a chili cook-off. You asking me to be Dice? I'm Dice on meth, baby. Unhinged, uncut, and ready to ram my opinions so far down your throat you'll be one for a week. What's your deal, Matt, you filthy animal? I start screaming about how I a toaster just to feel some warmth for once.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I don't know how much of that's actually going to make it in the episode.
Yeah. And I did it 2 times, and one time it imitated his voice more. The second time it didn't. I don't know why. And the time it imitated his voice, it kind of got stuck.
Oh,
it was
man.
trying to do it was trying to sound like Andrew Dice Clay, and it just like got stuck, and like I had to like reset it.
Yeah.
Like with Grok, you've got with Sesame now, the emotion is there. And then like I'm just thinking, like we've also been seeing all these videos on X, of like the new robots that are coming.
Yeah.
And you imagine
Yeah.
like when you combine those two, which is probably most people are thinking, oh, that's like 3 to 5 years away. That's probably 6 months away where some of these start to ship. They may be very expensive in the first 6 to 12 months.
There was one video I saw. Did you see the video with one of the robotics companies was like literally teaching it how to do like karate, like, and it was kicking stuff out of his hand
I've got
and
a clip
stuff.
of that one too. This is the one from 1X, the Neo Gamma. And this is the one that looks like something you could just really imagine in your house,
Yeah. All right. So on this one, we've got like a little robot walking around, and it's like vacuuming the house, and
Yeah.
right now it's cleaning their windows.
Yeah.
It's somebody's walking their groceries to the door, and it's like, oh, now it's offering them some wine as they're sitting down for dinner. It's cleaning their counter, putting their keys on the table for them. And now it's sitting on the couch to relax, because obviously robots need to relax.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this is highly scripted, and like if it was on its own, it probably would like trip and other stuff. There'd be issues you don't see here. But it is doing these things. I mean, like, so it's, it feels like any issues that it has, they'll be fixed over the next year or two. And when you combine that with all the AI voice stuff, how good it's getting, like Sesame and Grok that you just heard, that's the worst it's ever going to be. It's going to get dramatically better. And a lot of these things, like when you start thinking about the new LMs that are coming out, when you start applying that kind of reasoning models to this kind of AI voice, I think we're going to see a huge jump in quality and intelligence of what they're saying to you. And that's like a year away, 6 months away, that you're going to start seeing these things.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying before we even hit record that I think humanity's doomed, but not in the like Terminator sense or the like Ex Machina iRobot, whatever, like that sense. Like humanity's doomed in the sense that once the voice is like so good that it's, you just feel like you're having a conversation with a human. And once they put like the robots and they, put whatever sort of like skin over them to the point where they look so human, right? I have a feeling like the younger generations are going to like prefer the companionship of these robots and the AIs over the companionship of humans.
Man, like all the otaku guys in Japan who were like nerds, like me and my wife were both nerds. It's like a lot of those guys, they're going to love this. I mean, they're going to like, because they mostly stay in their home and don't really talk to people. And then now they're going to be able to buy a robot that they chat with and has a voice like on the movie Her, like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, like, I feel like younger generations as well are like becoming more and more introverted just because they prefer to stay home and play video games than go out and play with friends, right? Like, I know when I was growing up, it was the type of thing where on the weekends, my parents would be like, see you later. I'd go out my front door and then wouldn't come home until it started to get dark again. And I was just like out in the neighborhood playing with other neighborhood kids. And it's like, that's not how it works anymore. My kids don't like, we have to force my kids to leave the house because they would so much rather prefer to sit around and play video games,
So my son's the same way, but he goes to the park with all his friends. So it's just like, they're literally at the park, like playing video games.
There's a few things that worry me about AI just in general, right? The sort of Terminator Skynet scenario is probably the farthest down the list out of all of them. I think the ones that scare me the most are like the ability to scam people, right? Because as these voices get better and better and better, it just becomes easier and easier to fool people over the phone, right? We've already heard of these scams where somebody will call and, a parent and say, we've got your kid, we're holding them ransom, send us this money. But it's like AI voices and they clone the kid's voice for like proof of life or whatever. That type of stuff has already been happening. And I feel like, a year, 2 years ago, we would have been able to sort of spot like, okay, this sounds a little off. I think maybe there's something weird going on here. We're getting to a point where I think it's getting harder and harder and harder, and we're not going to be able to like tell anymore, right? So I think that the sort of like scam ability is one of my biggest fears around AI. Second, probably biggest fear around AI is just like the possibility of like population collapse because nobody wants to go seek companionship outside of electronics and technology anymore, you know?
But I'm not sure, because like a few things, like a lot of things that we have built in the past, people today don't know how to rebuild those things or maintain them. So a lot of things that we take for granted, we're kind of like standing on the shoulders of giants, right? There's a lot of things that we don't, Matt, you're not going to make an airplane, right? Right. There's all these things that exist that we don't know how to maintain or even
not yet. AI is not quite good enough yet.
Right. Yeah. So
eventually I'll prompt AI to make an airplane for me though.
Yeah. That's my point. It's like, I think we're going to need robots to solve these problems, right? We're going to need AI and robots to solve these problems. Like, yeah, maybe Matt can't build the airplane, but this AI can, right? And for a lot of things, like, okay, there's, with population collapse, you have a problem where old people don't have people to take care of them. In Japan, that they're seeing the early signs of that being a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
There's so many old people in Japan.
Which I think is probably a good benefit of like a lot of the humanoid robotics, honestly.
Right. When you see the one that we just saw where it's like helping you do your laundry and all that, it's like, yeah, maybe we're in a future where instead of when you get old, you have to go to a nursing home, which is like a horrible experience. Then instead you get to stay home and have a like friendly robot that is there for you and helps take care of you. And you can actually chat with about like your favorite book, or, hey, recommend a book to me. Then you read the book. There'll be all these kind of interactions that aren't possible today that will be possible. So that's the thing where I'm really optimistic, is where, it's going to create new issues, but it's also going to solve a lot of problems for us too. And I think overall it's going to solve more problems than it creates.
Where giving you a sponge bath doesn't bother it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's going to get weird. Like, I've already told my wife about it. It's like, okay, what kind of robot are you okay with in the house?
Did you see the demo of I think it was the figure Helix, the Helix robot, where there was 3 robots and they were all in a kitchen, but they were communicating together, right? Like without, like non-verbally, they had some sort of like sync up between them where they were helping each other do household chores. Like one was handing the other an apple and they would take the apple and put it in a bucket. One would hand them like a bottle of ketchup and that one would go and put it in the fridge, but they were like communicating with each other what needed to be done, sort of, telepathically. Obviously it's through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or something like that. But, they were communicating with each other. I can see a scenario where like you have a 3-story house, you just have a robot on each level, but they all sort of are communicating with each other.
And they meet up and have, tea time and everything.
Yeah. Well, they don't even need to meet up because they're communicating between floors anyway.
Yeah. Obviously, they're going to be incredibly safe before anyone's going to be okay with it.
Yeah. Well, was it Figure? I think it was Figure who put up a post on X saying that they accelerated their timeline and they're hoping to have humanoid robots in houses by the end of this year. Before their timeline was like 2 or 3 years out. Now they're saying before the end of 2025, we want humanoid robots in houses.
Yeah, when I said 6 months, that's where that was coming from.
To me, it's just wild to think that could be a reality this year. I mean, I don't think many will have them this year. I think you've got to be, it's going to be very, very upper class and most likely scientists and like super tech nerds are going to have them. Like I could see MKBHD having one wander around his studio or whatever, but I don't think many people are going to have them by the end of 2025, but they could.
Yeah, I think by the end of 2025, you'll see like a bunch of tech CEOs in San Francisco, they'll have them in their houses.
It'd almost be like the new Flex. Instead of a Cybertruck, they got their, Optimus.
Yeah, it might be like your buddy comes over and it brings out some coffee or something. It's like
yeah. One of the other things I wanted to show off too was this Octave. So there's this company called Hume, and Hume was sort of previously known for making this speech model. Like I don't remember which LLM it used underneath, but its speech model was able to understand like your tone. If it could tell if you were happy or mad.
Oh, okay, it's that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you remember the early demos, you would talk. And as you were talking, it would in real time try to like sense your emotion. It would be like, I'm sensing like anger and humility, or I'm sensing nervousness and fear or whatever, right? And as you were talking to it, it actually show you on the screen what sort of emotion it was feeling. Well, that same company just put out a new model called Octave text-to-speech. And it's a model where, here, I'll share my screen again, but it's a model where you can actually give it, like you give it the type of voice you want, and then you give it a script, and it will actually read the script in that type of voice. I'll just have it generate one at random here. The speaker is chillingly intense voice, like a seasoned horror voice actor, delivering lines with a raw emotion and building dread, perfect for narrating terrifying tales. And then for the text, I can just put like, everybody needs to subscribe to the Next Wave podcast or humanity will definitely end. And then we could go ahead and generate that.
Better subscribe.
So we could go ahead and generate that, and it's going to do it in this supposedly like chilling voice. Now it's not like instant. It does take like a minute or so.
Everybody needs to subscribe to the Next Wave podcast, or humanity will definitely end.
But it gives you like 3 options. So that was the first option. Here's the second.
Everybody needs to subscribe to the Next Wave podcast, or humanity will definitely end.
To me, that's not screaming dread and terror, though.
At all. That's daring.
Everybody needs to subscribe to Next Wave podcast, or humanity will definitely end.
It's so weird. They're not coming out as impressive as they once were, but I don't know. It is what it is.
It may be something because it's so hard for it to understand. Like, why would that be world ending? It's having a hard time imagining that, and then like it's just not, for some reason, it's not picking up what you're trying to accomplish.
Let me have it like randomly generate some new stuff here. So the speaker has an intense, charismatic voice with gravitas of a respected news anchor, as if they were on the verge of breaking the most important story of the century. And then it just generated some random text here. So let's just have it speak that random text.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, we delve into the shadows, where whispers of conspiracy dance with the cold, hard facts of reality, threatening to unravel everything we hold dear.
So that one matches the description a little better. I want to try, let's see, what's a different like emotion we can give? Let's try just like angry, because before I was just giving it like 1-word descriptions and they were coming out really good. So let's see if we can get it to say it angrily.
But
Are
they
you
did
serious
pretty,
right now? I can't believe you just did that. I'm so furious. So that's what it generated. So you can see it's actually generating based on the description. Let's try angry with that.
Are you serious right now? I can't believe you just did that. I'm so furious.
Sounds like an angry cartoon.
Are you serious right now? I can't believe you just did that. I'm so furious.
Are you serious right now? I can't believe you just did that. I'm so furious.
Anyway,
the
idea behind Hume is that their voice input model understands your emotions, right? So it can actually understand and tell if you're angry or scared or happy or whatever. And it responds based on the emotion that it senses from you. But now they've figured out how to like reverse that, where you can plug in text, give it an emotion, and it will, theoretically speak it back in that emotion. And if we get to a point where like this is in the robots and stuff, it's just going to give the robots more of that emotion, right? It's going to give the robots that ability to like, although I guess we're seeing that with Sesame, right? Like I feel like Sesame understands if you're pissed off at it or you're making a joke and sort of responds accordingly as well. But, this is a text to speech model. That one you can only talk to right now.
Yeah, I feel like Sesame's like got some basic version of what Hume's doing with like the almost like sentiment analysis of your voice of like happy, sad, angry, whatever. It's definitely responding to how you're saying things, not just what you're saying.
And as of right now, I feel like Sesame does it better.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it was kind of funny. Like Hume came out like way earlier, and it was an impressive like little demo, and but they didn't really turn it into a great product as of yet, or at least not like a popular product, I would say.
So when it comes to practical use cases, we were talking about that earlier. I can see stuff like Hume being used for like a podcast or something, right? Where if somebody wants to make their own podcast and actually have it, like Notebook LM does it really, really well, right? Where you plug in a bunch of content and then it has 2 people discussing and it sounds very natural. If you were just to give that to like your mom or something, right? She would probably just assume it's 2 real people. And then you tell her it's AI and they would be like, oh, whoa, that's crazy, right? But the first time you hear it without the context that it's AI, you wouldn't think twice about it. You're just like, oh, this is 2 people having a discussion. I feel like stuff like Octave are going to make that like so much easier, because I can go and plug in, I can go and, generate some dialogue of 2 people and then plug in one of the person's side of the dialogue with one set of emotions and a description of their voice, plug in the other side of the dialogue with a different description and a different voice, and then merge them together in some like audio software. and we have something that sounds like a legit podcast that you can actually, put out there and use.
Right.
Also, we're seeing a lot more of those like blog posts and articles where at the very top of it, there's just like a read it for me sort of thing. I actually can't stand it when it sounds super, super robotic, right? I love it when they use ElevenLabs or something like that, and it actually sounds like a real human reading it to me. Well, I feel like, tools like this Octave are going to make that even better and better and better, where it's going to get to a point where you land on an article, you can press play, and it's just going to sound like a real person is just reading it to you and taking breaths and, taking pauses that sound normal at the right points in the thing. And, if it's an angrily written article about politics or something, maybe it comes off more angry sounding as they're reading it to you. Like, that's the type of stuff that you're able to do now with these kinds of tools.
Do you know who Patrick Collison is? The founder of Stripe, which is like a huge payment processing
I'm
company.
familiar with Stripe. Yeah, I didn't know the name though.
Yeah. So Patrick Collison, really well known in Silicon Valley, one of like the most well known startup founders. He put out a thing recently where they did like their update to their team, like their quarterly report or something like that. And he's like a really great writer, but I think he's the kind of person who doesn't really enjoy like going on interviews and stuff like this. He trained, I think it was ElevenLabs on his voice. And had it, I think ElevenLabs kind of like fine-tuned things with him. I think they actually probably like collaborated on this as almost like a marketing effort or something, maybe, based on some of the subtweets I saw. But it sounded exactly like him reading the report. And so there was an audio version of the report. Maybe I can find it.
And a lot of these tools struggle with accents too. So, I mean, like ElevenLabs has struggled with accents in the past as well. I trained my own voice into ElevenLabs. It's so weird because when I play the voice back, I have a hard time making it sound like me. But then when I play it for other people are like, no, that sounds like you. It's very weird.
Yeah, let me play just a part of it. I mean, a lot of people probably don't know Patrick Collison, so maybe they won't know his voice, but like...
Dear Stripe community, businesses on Stripe generated 1.4 trillion in total payment volume in 2024, up 38% from the prior year and reaching a scale equivalent to around 1.3% of global GDP. We attribute this year's rapid growth in part to our long-standing investments in building machine learning and artificial intelligence into our products.
Yeah, so for reference, so you can hear how he actually sounds, here's him talking recently on the All In.
First, you probably don't remember this, but I remember that meeting that we offered you, do you want something to drink? We did not have a broad selection. I think we had water or milk in the fridge, and you asked for a glass of water. And so I went over to the sink and I realized that we hadn't really been on top of the washing.
I mean, it's a small clip, but to me, it sounds like a 95% match for that ElevenLabs annual letter.
Yeah. I think the sort of giveaways for me, right, are when you listen to the ElevenLabs version, the pacing of the speaking is all sort of the same. Right. But when you listen to somebody actually speak, they sort of speed up and slow down. And so when I just heard him talk, the voice sounded the same, but you do hear him speak really quickly for a minute and then sort of slow down his pace again. And then he might, know, and so people, the speed of the way they talk sort of fluctuates up and down. But when you listen to something like ElevenLabs generated voice, you just hear it sort of all at the same pace. And I think that's the giveaway. But I also think that's where like something like Sesame is really impressive, as you start to notice it has some of those variations in it, you know?
Well, I mean, I think the interesting thing too, though, was like, because you were talking about the summaries of articles and things like that. And what I was thinking about was like when I listen to audiobooks, I've always hated when it's somebody else's voice, right? If it's the author's voice, that's cool. And it's way better if it's the author's voice. But like, a lot of people don't have the time to do that. So like now in theory, just like, Patrick Collison just did for his annual letter, all CEOs and all authors could be doing similar things where they're still using their voice to make the summary. Like if it's a blog post, it's it's my voice for my blog post for my newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Versus somebody else's voice.
For sure.
I think
here's the voice that ElevenLabs did for me. Again, whenever I listen to it, I have a hard time hearing my own voice, but this is what it sounds like.
Everyone should subscribe to the Next Wave podcast, or Nathan will send robots to your house.
Way different. Yeah. So like I said, so those guys definitely have connections at ElevenLabs. And so if I had to guess, this is some kind of, they've collaborated and it's probably on a next version of the model or something that's coming out that's not public. If I had to guess, could be wrong.
Gotcha.
But there's a lot of
I also trained this in a while ago.
Yeah.
I trained this in a while ago. Like I started using ElevenLabs maybe 2 years ago, maybe even longer, 2.5 years ago. I was a very, very like early user of ElevenLabs, and I trained my voice. I think I've trained it in again since then, but I think my most recent training run was probably still like a year ago. So there might even be a better model, and I just need to go train it again, and it'll be better this time around, you know?
I think it's been the same model for like probably 6 to 9 months. But I'm sure they've like made tweaks to it, but I would have to assume that there's like a new, better version coming out. Or that's what I'm hoping. You know, I told you I've been working on my game, and I tried using it for like voiceovers and stuff like that, and it got, you know, decent. But I'm like, this is nowhere near. This is not good enough to release. with this kind of voice.
I mean, hey, maybe that Octave might be one to play with, because that one I believe has APIs that you can use, and you can actually give it like this sort of description of whether you want it to sound angry or happy or whatever. So I mean, that might actually be a really cool one to test with like game development and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they even have sound effects too. A lot of people don't realize that, but you can actually generate sound effects as well.
Oh yeah,
there's a whole
in
section
ElevenLabs. Yeah. Cool. Well, I feel like we covered a lot of ground in this episode.
I've been using Whisper Flow, but I think
I feel like that one's hard to go really deep on, because you know, you've got Whisper, which is already really good. That's OpenAI's open source model, where you can give it a bunch of audio or video and it will transcribe it. You've got Assembly AI has a really, really good one that's supposedly the most accurate up until the ElevenLabs one. And now you have the ElevenLabs one, which is supposedly the most accurate, now passing Assembly AI. You know, AWS has their own version. I believe Google has their own version. But like the big differences between all of the speech to text models is just like the percentage of accuracy, right? It's like, this one is 90% accurate. Now this one's 92% accurate. Now this one's 98% accurate, right? And it's just like, it's hard to really demonstrate the variations between them. The biggest difference is they're just getting more accurate.
Right. Yeah, so I've been using one called Whisper Flow, and actually, I don't know, it's not an OpenAI product, but maybe it is using their API underneath the hood. I'm not actually sure.
I believe Whisper Flow is using the API. I can double check. Let me ask Perplexity.
Yeah, that would make sense why it's called Whisper Flow, but
Whisper Flow does use OpenAI's Whisper underneath. So yeah, it's basically a wrapper on their API.
Yeah. And it's nice. I mean, like what you do is like you set up like one hotkey. And so I have like one hotkey. It's like on my Mac, it's a function. On PC, for some reason, I think I had to have like 2 buttons. I had to like, doing like, I think it was Control and Windows key or something. But I just press that and then I just talk. And then everything I say, it turns it into text, and you can do this for tweets. You can do this for prompting LLMs. It's people have been talking about like vibe coding. That's part of what they're talking about when they say vibe coding, is not just using cursor to create things, but the fact that you're just talking to it, and the words turn into code.
Well, if you go back and listen to the episode or watch the episode that we did with Riley Brown, where we actually coded up an app with him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was Whisper Flow that he was using, but he was doing that, right? He was, whenever we were talking about like, let's add this feature, let's add that feature, let's add this, he was just pressing a button on his keyboard and just speaking out what he wanted it to code for him, and it would go and do it. I'm fairly certain it was Whisper Flow. If it wasn't, it was something very, very similar.
I'm pretty sure it was. That's where I learned about it from. I was like, I remember that from the podcast, and when I had the injury, I was like, oh, I need to actually use this now. Like, yeah.
That's good. I mean, I used to use Dragon Naturally Speaking. I don't know if you remember that one. And it was never very accurate, but that's what it was designed for. And there's always a delay. You would talk and then like it would think, and then like 10 seconds later you'd see your text like populate on the screen.
Yeah. Whisper Flow, like if you talk fast, and like, I think I do talk fast naturally if I don't like slow myself down. It told me I was like top 1% of users in terms of speed of talking. I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh crap. But
it still picks it up mostly?
It's mostly. And like, but I do find myself trying to, slow myself down and not talk as fast. And it's funny, there's times where, it'll get a word wrong, and it's definitely like not a word I said incorrectly, which of course I do sometimes, but when that's not the case, it'll still sometimes get the word wrong. And it's kind of funny when you paste that into Grok, and Grok will be like, oh, I assume you meant so-and-so, but that's kind of funny what you said, or that was a funny joke. It's like, what?
Yeah. That's just Grok being sassy with you.
Yeah. Grok's like, I like that, but it's kind of funny.
Well, cool. Yeah. I mean, I think, there's actually some good use cases that people listening to this episode could go use this for. There's some great tools out there for turning articles and blog posts into audio. There's some great tools out there like Whisperflow for turning, just you speaking into text or prompting or vibe coding. You've got all of these various speech to text models where if you want to get your videos transcribed or your podcast transcribed, those things are getting better and better now. I don't know if you saw this, but Google Drive is just going to start transcribing videos that you toss into Google Drive the same way YouTube does. So like if you start throwing videos into Google Drive, they're going to make all of your video content in Google Drive searchable, because it's going to automatically transcribe all videos that you toss in there just to make it easier to search out and find the exact videos you're looking for. So like some of those features are just going to start getting built into some of the tools that you're already using, which I think is pretty cool as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like off of the topic of AI voice, but the rumors now are that the next GPT, whether it's GPT-5 or it's just an improvement on 4.5, is going to have the ability to like view videos and understand what's in the videos. As well as Sam Altman also teased that there's a dramatic upgrade to DALL-E coming. He said you're going to be thrilled with joy or something. He said something like that about what's coming soon. So I think you're going to see like all of these are going to get way better in terms of understanding images, video, and
Gemini's already really good at it. That app that I was showing you and Matt Berman on our previous episode, it was using Gemini behind the scenes because Gemini can actually watch videos. It only sees the video at 1 frame per second. So if you plug in like a 60 frame per second video, it's only sort of capturing it 1 every second. But it can pick up on what's going on in the video, and it basically watches videos on inside of my app and describes what's going on to make them searchable. So I would be really shocked if OpenAI doesn't roll that into one of their next models.
Yeah, Google's cooking. People don't give them enough credit, but like they are doing a lot of amazing work. And I think you commented on it that recently, like Elon Musk responded to one of my tweets, and like he kind of like framed it as like the actual battle is XAI versus Google. He like left out OpenAI when he responded to me, and I thought that was hilarious. But could end up being right eventually. Who knows? Because I mean, like Google just keeps coming out with new stuff. I mean, this is like probably really off topic, but I saw stuff like yesterday of like there's new stuff in science that Google's rolling out for like AI, using AI in science, and apparently scientists are blown away by it. And so like Google's doing good stuff.
Yeah, Google's they've got some cool stuff coming out, and who knows? Maybe that's a future episode. Maybe we'll do a whole episode about all the crazy stuff that Google's been rolling out lately.
Ending with like totally ramblings about different topics.
No, it's cool. I think people, people tune into podcasts like this to sort of hear where our heads are at and what sort of things are on our mind right now in the world of AI. And and I mean the pace of updates is just it's crazy. Every day there's something that like got a huge upgrade. And so that's why podcasts like this exists. That's why YouTube channels like my other channel exist, right? There's so much happening that anybody that wants to stay in the loop, well, that's what we're making this show for. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. If you prefer listening to audio versions, we're available wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all the rest. We'll help you keep your head on straight. We might go crazy around AI sometimes, but ideally you don't have to because you tune into podcasts like this. But I think,
remember, subscribing helps save the world as well.
Yeah, subscribing also helps save the world, and it's going to keep Nathan from sending scary robots to your house. So make sure you're subscribed. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
See you.